Ha, this guy's toast.
Hey guys, this guy's Toast here. Today we'll be taking a look at a few key plays that happened during the BlizzCon World Championships. While there were definitely some moments of really good luck,
play this card in his mage. This could be huge for Marvel.
I want to focus on some of the important decisions players made that had a huge impact on the match outcome. The first one comes to us from the group stages, featuring Sidonia from Canada and Jason Zhao from China. Sidonia's Khatun Warrior is up against Jason Zhao's N'Zoth Warrior, a matchup almost guaranteed to go to fatigue. Let's take a look at some of the key cards in this matchup. For Sidonia, it's his Brand Doomcaller combo. If he manages to reduce either card's mana cost with an Emperor Thaurissan, he will be able to play both on the same turn, adding 2 Cthuns back into his deck and delaying his fatigue counter by 2 draws, giving him a huge advantage if the game goes to fatigue. But in order for Doomcaller to trigger, Sidonia's Cthulhu first has to die on his side of the board. Normally, this wouldn't be hard to do, as your opponents generally want to kill your big Cthuns. However, Jason Zhao has 2 cards that can counter this strategy. The first one is Sylvanas Windrunner, who can steal Cthulhu with her Death Rattle. The second one is Tinkmaster Overspark. By transforming Cthulhu into a squirrel or a Devilsaur, Jason Zhao can prevent Sidonia's Doomcaller from triggering. During the course of the game, Sidonia found an opportunity to drop his Emperor Thaurissan and he gets the mana reduction on 2 key cards, Brand Bronzebeard and Cthulhu. Not only does this enable the Brand Doomcaller combo, it also means that Sidonia can now play Cthulhu and Shield Slam it on the same turn, killing it and guaranteeing the Doomcaller trigger. However, Jason Zhao has been applying non-stop pressure to Sidonia with his plethora of minions, as well as putting Sidonia's Gorehowl into the museum with Harrison Jones. Having spent a lot of his removals just to keep Jason Zhao at bay, Sidonia finds himself in a tough position. With 12 armor, Sidonia could play Cthulhu and potentially clear the board and then shield slam his own Cthulhu right away, but doing so would leave him with only a single shield slam and 2 brawls left as removals, cards he has to save for big threats such as N'Zoth or the Golden Monkey. Sidonia doesn't go for it, instead opting to play the match out a bit more to see if he can draw more options. After a couple more turns of back and forth, Sidonia is once again put in the exact same position as before. Deciding he could wait no longer, Sidonia goes for the Cthulhu play, clearing his opponent's board and putting a huge threat on the table. But with only 5 armor, the option to shield slam his own Cthulhu is no longer available. Now, because Sidonia still holds the Sylvanas and a shield slam, if Jason Zhao does go for his Sylvanas steal off his own, Sidonia can steal it right back. Meaning there's only one card that can seal the victory for Jason Zhao, and that's Tinkmaster Overspark. The Tinkmaster comes down, transforming Cthulhu as well as disabling Doomcaller's ability. And with that, Jason Zhao was ultimately able to win the game during the fatigue stages, as Sidonia eventually ran out of big threats. While Sidonia may have committed a huge mistake in letting his Cthulhu get transformed, ultimately it was Jason Zhao's decision to pile on the early pressure that secured the win for him. Sidonia was forced into a position where he felt like he had to go for an extremely risky play that could have turned the game around had it not been for Tinkmaster Overspark. During the game between Dr. Hippie's Tempo Mage and Breath's mid-range Shaman, Dr. Hippie found himself in a very dire situation. With 16 damage on the board for his opponent, Dr. Hippie could potentially survive another turn at 19 health. And with a Fireball plus a Forgotten Torch in his hand, Dr. Hippie can clear 2 threats off the table, buying even more time for him to draw into his Flame Strike for a full board clear. But instead, he takes a huge risk.
Dr. Hippie win if he's just spending time removing constantly.
Yep, I agree. Dr. Hippie would have been sad just saying one Flame Strike please to himself at that point, but having got at least an out with the spell damage, he now puts himself in range for additional burn off the top. So
with his line of play, Dr. Hippie gives his opponent a 50% chance to draw into lethal damage, but it also gives him a small window of opportunity to win the game with his next draw, assuming he even survives the turn. Incredibly, Breath doesn't find a single source of damage, giving Dr. Hippie that one last draw to win the game. And wouldn't you know it, he gets Fireball off the top and rips the victory from the jaws of defeat. While it was some good fortune on Dr. Hippie's part, his decision to set himself up for lethal by throwing all his spells towards the Shaman hero the previous turn was what enabled the Fireball lethal. We see a very similar situation in the match between Amnesiac's Malygos Druid and Paval's Miracle Rogue. After Paval has played a huge Edwin Van Cleef, Amnesiac counters with the Sylvanas Windrunner, threatening to steal it. The only card that can reliably deal with Sylvanas is the Sap, but Paval doesn't have any in his hand. Similar to Dr. Hippie in the previous situation, Paval goes all in on one strategy, in this case digging for Sap. Deciding that if Sylvanas was allowed to trigger, he would have an incredibly difficult time staying in the game. After playing his Gadgetzan Auctioneer, Paval chooses to use Sinister Strike now instead of saving it for Malygos later on, doubling his chances of drawing Sap in exchange for losing his late game burst. He misses on the first draw, but his gamble pays off when he gets the Sap off his preparation.
For here, if he doesn't get it, looks like a Sap!
Called it! The Sap, and Amnesiac is not happy, and understandably so. Just
again,
when he needed it.
Remember, and I say this with the greatest of love, you would not have got that Sap with the play that first came into your
Oh,
mind.
yeah, of course,
You
yeah.
had to stop and think about it, realize that playing the Sinister Strike doubled your outs, and this is exactly what I've been talking about from Pavel the whole time. He considered his options that turn. He found the stronger line. He's put himself in a potential game-winning.
And with this huge tempo play, Paval is able to keep control of his board and snowball it into a victory. Had he just played Shiv to look for more options, had he saved his Sinister Strike, had he played Preparation first, Paval would not have been able to find his Sap, and Amnesiac would have stolen his Edwin and potentially win the game off it. But there was one instance where Paval didn't try to go for the win. In the Warrior Mirror match against Hotmouth, Paval actually had a way to win the game, but instead chose to concede. With an 18-18 Cthulhu in hand and Hotmouth at 17 health, Paval had a small chance of winning the game.
Maybe if all 18 hit face.
He's not even
going to play it. He had a chance for lethal.
It is so minus. I mean, I don't even know what the odds of that are. He needs 17 of 18 missiles to go to face with 3 targets.
Sometimes you hit the lottery.
I don't disagree with that. It's just a very, very weird spot. I'd like to know what the math is on that one.
Okay, yeah. That would be interesting to see.
Alright, fine, let's do the math. There are 18 shots available, 17 of them has to go face, so one shot is free to hit a minion. So let's take a look at all the scenarios that can result in a win for Paval. If the first shot misses and the rest hits, it's lethal. If the second shot misses but the rest hits, it's lethal. And so on and so forth. The odds of each of these scenarios can be calculated by 1/3 to the power of 17 times 2/3. The 1/3 represents his chances of hitting face, and it's to the power of 17 because 17 of it has to hit face. The 2/3 represents the one shot that is allowed to hit a minion. So there are 17 of these scenarios, so you just multiply this equation by 17. There is, however, an 18th one, which is when all first 17 shots goes face, in which case the last one doesn't really matter where it goes, because the game would have ended by then. So for that particular scenario, you just calculate 1/3 to the power of 17. Add them all up, and you get about a 0.00001% chance to win the game. The odds aren't great, but hey, it beats 0%. That's going to do it for me, guys. While these moments might not be as exciting as a Yogg-Saron or a Bablin book, I do hope it shows that calculated risk-taking as well as deep understanding of matchups can play a huge role in the outcome of a Hearthstone game. Thanks for watching, and I'll see all of you on the mean streets of Gadgetzan.
Hey, lights out.